The introduction discusses the author's experience with a feeling of restless emptiness and autopilot living as a teenager, which inspired their research into the concept of languishing. Adam Grant popularized the term languishing in a 2021 New York Times article describing the low-grade mental fatigue and emptiness many were experiencing during the pandemic. Languishing refers to a low-level mental stagnation where one lacks a sense of purpose or engagement, rather than experiencing clinical depression. However, it can develop into or co-occur with depression. The symptoms listed include flattened emotions, feelings of aimlessness, disconnect from community/purpose, procrastination, brain fog, and lack of motivation in relationships or life goals. Languishing is distinguished from burnout in that it is a broader mental condition rather than solely work-related stress. However, burnout can contribute to or exacerbate languishing. The introduction sets up the book's explanation of languishing and strategies for cultivating greater well-being and flourishing through connections, growth, meaning, resilience and play. The passage discusses languishing and flourishing as important concepts for mental health and well-being beyond just the absence of mental illness. Languishing involves weak functioning and a lack of meaning, purpose and engagement, while flourishing involves strong functioning with growth, purpose and engagement. Society often blames individuals for their mental state, but the author argues systems can fail people and erode their agency to create fulfilling lives aligned with their values. Demands of overworked jobs in healthcare, education and other fields can wear down defenses over time. Long-term languishing can weaken one's self-narrative and sense of self, feeling dead inside. This creates a cycle of declining well-being. Flourishing from improved functioning creates resilience to stress and builds life satisfaction. Research found languishing increases risks of depression, anxiety, PTSD, self-harm and more. Flourishing strongly protects against these issues. Both dimensions are distinct from but related to clinical mental illness. The author argues languishing poses serious public health threats and must not be downplayed. While mental illness treatment is important, flourishing through improved functioning can also be achieved alongside illness through practices like exercise and meditation. The passage describes a boy named Paul who was experiencing symptoms of languishing in middle school. Paul and his classmates struggled socially and academically due to pandemic disruptions in 6th grade. They had trouble connecting with new people and making a fresh start at their new school. In 7th grade, Paul started getting into more trouble like horsing around and petty vandalism at school. His grades also slipped from A's/B's to more C's. At home, Paul withdrew socially by spending hours alone in his room with his hood up and refusing to talk to his parents much. He seemed listless and missed homework assignments. Paul is displaying signs of languishing like lack of connection, low mood, disengagement from activities, and declining academic performance as a result of the social and educational disruptions from the pandemic during his transition to middle school. Paul was a high-achieving teenager who started exhibiting strange languid behaviors like not having energy to move his limbs. His parents were concerned as this was unlike him. Paul posted about bringing a fake gun to school on social media as a joke. The school went into lockdown and he was expelled. His parents were shocked by this out-of-character behavior. Adolescence can be a lonely, confusing time. Paul may have been acting out due to feelings of alienation and lack of purpose. Languishing, defined as a lack of well-being, can occur in young children, teenagers, and older adults. About 37 to 60% of people in these age groups experience languishing. Factors that contribute to languishing in children include physical/mental illnesses, developmental delays, and socioeconomic disadvantages like lack of food/sleep or social support for parents. Teenagers face many weighty existential questions and pressures at a developmentally difficult time. Early signs of languishing in teens include self-harm, substance use, delinquency, and lack of social support/friendships. There were concerning events in Rockdale County, Georgia in the late 1990s like violence, substance use, and an STD outbreak among teenagers, indicating increased adolescent distress and risky behaviors. The story describes a syphilis outbreak in the 1990s among privileged teenagers in Rockdale County, Georgia. On the surface they had comfortable lives, but investigations revealed hidden issues like group sex, drug and alcohol abuse. Experts were alarmed and searched for explanations. A documentary producer said they saw the outbreak as a sign of deeper problems. The teens felt empty and lonely despite material comforts. Their parents were successful and busy providing financially but had little time for emotional needs. A study linked languishing in teens to poor quality parental relationships and feeling unsupported at home. The story then discusses the pressures college students face today from high expectations, competition, uncertainty about careers. Rates of depression, anxiety and mental health issues are rising on campuses. While students want happiness most of all, perfectionism from parental expectations is linked to worse mental health outcomes. Most parents push children to succeed out of concern given economic challenges, but it may be coming at a cost to student well-being. Attending a top-ranked university matters less for long-term financial stability than many parents believe. Employers are focusing more on foot skills like writing, communication, problem-solving over high-status degrees. Universities should measure student success not just by GPA but by flourishing, feeling happy, engaged, accepting of self/others, eager to contribute to society. Tracking mental health metrics like counselor ratios and illness/suicide rates would provide useful information. Languishing impairs students' ability to function and increased medical students' risk of suicidal thoughts, dropping out, and unethical behaviors. It may cause mistakes and not taking responsibility. Young adults face stresses of careers, marriage, parenting where languishing is high. Isolation during the pandemic increased languishing in mothers. Postpartum languishing affects maternal confidence and child bonding. Parenting stresses like school choices take a toll. Adults question life choices amid day-to-day blur and loss of meaning/fulfillment despite succeeding. While work hours are similar to 1970s, more report job stress. Some work 50+ hours while others work less than 30. Professionals work more but low-level jobs provide less stable work. The top 10% of full-time earners actually work an hour less per week than the bottom 10% of earners. Both groups experience stress, the top from overwork and bringing work home, the bottom from unstable/insufficient work. Research found that languishing adults in the U.S. miss 6 more days of work per year, absenteeism, than average, totaling 23 lost years of productivity annually. Languishing also accounts for over 52 years of lost work annually due to presenteeism, leaving early or reduced productivity. A longitudinal study found that employees with high positive mental health, flourishing, had the lowest distress levels over time regardless of job stress. Support from colleagues also helped reduce distress. High demand, unsupportive work environments undermine well-being and increase risk of languishing. Languishing involves a feeling of emptiness, void, or longing for more purpose even when external circumstances seem favorable. It was recognized on The Oprah Winfrey Show and described by the author's acquaintance as feeling stuck in circling an airport, unable to land. Flourishing peaks in one's 60s but then declines, as purpose/contribution diminish with parenting/career winding down. Languishing increases again after age 75 due to physical ailments limiting independence, and spending only 10% of days in direct social contact on average. Older adults prioritize emotionally close, satisfying relationships. As mortality looms larger with age, flourishing is associated with feeling a continued purpose and contribution late in life, leading to greater quality and length of life. The passage describes the story of Scott, who was going through a difficult period in his life after getting divorced. He was financially struggling and had lost connection with his friends and colleagues at work. He had become combative, withdrawn and lacking in care or motivation. When his workplace mandated a well-being and resilience program, Scott initially refused to attend. However, his friend Faye convinced him to sign up. During the program, Scott started to gain self-awareness and appreciate his strengths. He realized how disconnected he had become from others. The program focused on growth mindset and mindfulness. This opened Scott's eyes and made him want to help others. He approached Faye about becoming trainers themselves. Scott started reconnecting with colleagues like Faye. He also wanted to help the inmates at the prison improve their well-being by connecting with them. Overall, the passage describes how Scott transformed from a period of languishing to regaining purpose and care for others through a well-being program that helped him gain self-awareness and reconnect with the people around him. Loneliness and social isolation have increased significantly in recent years, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 1/3 of people reported feeling very lonely in 2021. Time spent alone has also increased. Loneliness tends to increase with age as social connections diminish due to things like death of loved ones or moving into nursing homes. Living alone has also significantly increased in recent decades. Both loneliness and social isolation are associated with higher risks of premature death. They often go hand in hand with feelings of lack of purpose, personal growth, contribution to others, etc. Research shows many people find it uncomfortable and difficult to be alone with their thoughts. One study found over half of participants' minds wandered and nearly 50% rated the experience negatively. Some participants chose electric shocks over being alone. Forced isolation and stagnation through too much quiet and stillness can become emotionally painful over time, akin to physical pain. Factors like adverse childhood experiences and discrimination can heighten one's sensitivity to pain. The brain processes social/emotional pain in much the same way as physical pain. Loneliness activates the same pain pathways, so even small stressors may feel overwhelming. Pain is not just physical, emotional and psychological pains like social rejection, shame, fear, and discrimination also activate the brain's pain centers. Loneliness and lack of connection can cause real distress. People who experience emotional pain may turn to addictive substances or behaviors as an emotional anesthetic to numb the pain, seeking a feeling of connection or warmth that is missing in their lives. Factors like declining civic engagement, religious participation, and social trust have been reducing social connections for decades prior to smartphones and social media. Building satisfying social connections requires skills like empathy, emotional intelligence, vulnerability, and ability to communicate around conflict, skills that may be ODing if people spend more time alone. Both social connections and a sense of purpose/meaningful life are mutually reinforcing and important for well-being. Feelings of loneliness are tied to lacking a sense of meaning as much as lacking social interactions. Having more connections and meaning predicts lower loneliness. So in summary, the passage discusses how emotional and psychological pains activate the same brain regions as physical pain, and how lack of social connection can lead to distress, addiction, and a reduced sense of meaning, suggesting the importance of building skills for meaningful social interactions. Nowadays, we crave meaningful human connection to thrive, but often make decisions that lead us to feel more alone. Connection gives life meaning, and a meaningful life motivates us to connect with others. Discrimination significantly hampers people's ability to feel society is improving, make sense of the world, belong, accept themselves, express themselves freely, manage their own lives, and trust others. It takes a huge psychological toll over a lifetime. While some research found Black Americans report better mental health than whites, this masks the pressure of constantly having to prove one's worth against discrimination. Chronic stress from discrimination still worsens physical health outcomes. Social support and self-esteem help protect mental well-being for Black students, but this advantage disappears with age's cumulative experiences wear people down. Other groups like Asians also report high rates of distress due to recent discrimination. LGBTQ+ individuals and other marginalized groups face immense stigma that prevents them from getting necessary care for mental health issues worsened by years of bullying and intolerance. Discrimination undermines many components of flourishing and thriving for individuals and communities. Systemic change is needed to address injustices behind inequitable health outcomes. Happiness is an emotion, like sadness or fear, that serves an important purpose but is fleeting by nature. Focusing too directly on chasing happiness is often counterproductive. Instead, flourishing involves functioning well in life through aspects like developing purpose, having strong relationships, feeling self-accepted, and managing one's life effectively. This approach to well-being indirectly leads to more lasting feelings of happiness. One study found that assigning students to directly pursue happiness did not work, as they could not sustain positive feelings for more than an hour. Emotions are not meant to be prolonged states. All emotions, both positive and negative, evolve to serve important functions. Sadness motivates reflection, for example, while fear prepares us to respond to threats. The purpose of happiness may be to encourage social bonding and signal that basic needs are being met, allowing the contented individual to direct energy outward than inward. But like other emotions, it is meant to be transient rather than a constant state. Focusing on functioning well through flourishing is a more effective approach to well-being and catching happiness, rather than directly chasing the feeling itself as an end goal. Dopamine plays a key role in reward and pleasure in our brain. It helps us remember experiences that brought rewards so we seek them out again. Happiness and pleasure are fleeting emotions that are meant to signal what's rewarding, not last permanently. Lingering emotions can lead to issues like anxiety or depression. Our society overvalues happiness and constantly pursuing pleasure, leading some to argue it has become addictive like dopamine. We chase quick hits without fulfillment. A patient with brain damage lost the ability to feel emotions. Without emotions to guide decisions, his rational thinking led to poor choices. His wife struggled with him being unrecognizable. Eastern cultures are more accepting of difficult emotions and see desire as the root of suffering, versus always pursuing happiness. Approaches like acceptance therapy encourage embracing all emotions. Americans are less able to hold conflicting ideas or emotions simultaneously. Other cultures are more dialectical, embracing good and bad feelings together, like at times of mourning where laughter and sadness coexist. This summarizes the key points about eudaimonia, or functioning well, as good mental health. Aristotle believed happiness was a byproduct of more important pursuits like personal growth, living according to your values, and functioning well. He called this state of flourishing eudaimonia. Eudaimonia incorporates emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It's about feeling happy but also functioning well with purpose, belonging, contribution, acceptance, etc. Humans have a prefrontal cortex that allows rational thinking, learning, purpose, judgment. This helps us go beyond just feeling pleasure and avoiding pain like other animals. Developing ourselves through work and practice over a lifetime leads to a better, more excellent self and greater satisfaction than just being granted positive qualities instantly. There are 6 domains of human excellence that determine functioning well: acceptance/autonomy, connection/competence, and contribution/craftsmanship. Functioning well means exhibiting positive qualities consistently over time and context. Here is a summary of the key points about mastery and mattering. Mastery refers to being motivated to learn and grow. Enjoying getting better at skills or aspects of life is innately rewarding for humans. It requires both wanting to improve and being in an environment that supports growth. Mattering refers to believing that one's life has significance and that they are making a contribution to the world. For many people, this contribution comes through parenting or career success. Feeling that one matters is important for well-being. Together, mastery and mattering are important components of psychological functioning and flourishing. Striving for mastery by continually learning and growing, while also finding ways to contribute or matter through our roles and passions, supports well-being. The passage emphasizes that focusing on functioning well, even during challenging times, has the most immediate impact on well-being. Maintaining a sense of mastery and mattering requires courage but is supported by research as beneficial for flourishing. So in summary, mastery and mattering refer to the psychological needs to continually develop one's skills and abilities, and to feel that one's life has significance through contributions to others, both of which are important for well-being and flourishing. The dual continuum model proposes that health and well-being exist on a continuum, with flourishing on one end and languishing on the other. Similarly, there is a continuum for mental illness, ranging from wellness to distress. Biological systems like the immune system and muscle growth follow this model. Having some nasty agents like viruses or bacteria strengthens the immune system through small challenges. Exercise builds muscle through controlled muscle breakdown and rebuilding. Cholesterol levels also fit the model, with high good cholesterol and low bad cholesterol being most heart healthy. Telomeres and the protecting enzyme telomerase demonstrate the impact of stress and social support. High stress shortens telomeres faster, while social support boosted telomerase to reduce damage from stress. Mental well-being and illness are highly heritable, sharing around 60% of genetic factors. However, genes are not deterministic. Stress plays a role in activating genetic risks. The brain can grow new neurons, neurogenesis, and form new connections, neuroplasticity, through engagement and challenges. Studies show nuns' brain activity stem dementia, and stroke patients regain limb function with constrained movement therapy. Overall, the dual continuum model represents the body's ability to adapt, repair and strengthen in response to challenges. Staying healthy involves managing stressors so repair outpaces damage over time. Psychological and social factors like hope, support and activity also impact biological resilience and recovery. The dual continuum model of mental health views life on a continuum from languishing to flourishing, focusing not just on mental illness but also on positive mental health. This presents a more optimistic perspective. Cultivating strength, hope, and belief that something better is possible can help us have more resilience against difficulties. We need to focus on functioning well and thriving, not just feeling good. When the WHO started measuring disability-adjusted life years, DALYs, in addition to mortality, mental illnesses like depression rose up the list of leading causes of disease burden. Depression is now the #1 cause of DALYs globally. Antidepressant use is common, with over 13% of U.S. adults reporting use in the past month. The average age of first mental health issues is getting lower. While more funding now goes to treatment, current treatments are mostly palliative and not curative. No medication was designed based on truly understanding the etiology or underlying cause of mental illnesses. All originated from observing side effects of drugs created for other purposes. More focus on finding cures is needed. Early research in the 1950s showed that the antidepressant iproniazid increased serotonin levels in the body. This led to the hypothesis that depression is caused by a chemical imbalance of neurotransmitters like serotonin. However, there is no scientific evidence that actually supports the chemical imbalance theory of mental illness. Antidepressants increase neurotransmitter levels, but this does not prove an underlying imbalance was present. Placebo studies show around 50% of the improvement seen in antidepressant trials is due to placebo effect and natural recovery over time, not the medication itself. At most 25% of improvement can be attributed to the medication. Current medications are only palliative, not curative. We are no closer to understanding the underlying biological causes of mental illnesses. The focus on chemical imbalances promoted by pharmaceutical advertising is misleading. Mental illnesses like depression are often recurrent chronic conditions, not isolated episodes. The risk of relapse increases with each additional episode. A dual continuum model views mental health on a continuum from flourishing to languishing, rather than an absence/presence of illness. Focusing more on flourishing could help prevent languishing and depression. New approaches beyond just medication are needed to significantly improve mental health at a population level. Factors like social determinants, lifestyle behaviors, and psychosocial interventions need more attention. The passage discusses how learning something new can help prevent languishing and move one closer to flourishing. It provides the example of Ethan, who felt alone and isolated during the pandemic living in New York City. He moved in with his parents upstate to quarantine. There, his mother's love of gardening rubbed off on him surprisingly. A few years later, Ethan has become an unofficial weekend gardener, with a focus on daylilies. He has found meaning and enjoyment in learning about gardening and plants. The passage notes that learning something new of our own voluntary choosing in time, and for our own reasons, can be a powerful antidote to languishing. We don't have to take up expensive hobbies. Simple curiosity like Googling about daylilies can lead to personal growth. Learning helps one look back with a sense of pride in development. It promotes well-being and old age by finding joy in continuous learning. Knitting can get expensive if you start using expensive Scottish yarns, but it's a hobby you can do during boring Zoom meetings at any time. The time and money commitment is up to you. When learning new things, it's best to do it for internal reasons like personal growth rather than external reasons like showing off or one-upping others. The ability to improve ourselves is an important part of having a positive self-image and sense of well-being. Learning new skills can change how we see ourselves. Our sense of self is like an HVAC system that collects information about ourselves and compares it to our internal narrative or temperature settings. We look for self-consistency and a positive self-view. Learning is important for well-being only if it's autonomous and personally meaningful. Adults are constantly learning through new challenges in life even after formal education ends. Wisdom accumulates throughout life. Bravery is shown through challenges like a 55-year-old woman starting to learn the violin as her children leave home and she seeks new fulfillment and purpose. Facing difficulties with courage and perseverance alters how we see ourselves. The woman felt a sense of emptiness after being wrapped up in her community and raising children. She sensed a change coming as her last child prepared to leave home. To do something for herself, she decided to learn to play the violin. There was a closet full of musical instruments in her house that her children had abandoned years ago. Over a year later, she has been practicing and struggling as an adult learner. She has her first big recital coming up. Others admire her willingness to keep learning something new and to still try new things as an adult. She feels this has given her a voice, made her feel younger and more independent. Learning the violin has helped her feel less at the mercy of the world and more in control of her own life. She enjoys learning and growing through playing the violin. The passage is about a woman who felt a sense of emptiness after focusing on her community and family for many years. To do something for herself, she decided to learn to play the violin as an adult, which has provided challenges but also feelings of independence, growth and having her own identity outside of her family roles. The passage discusses the difference between comparison and admiration when it comes to other people. Comparison can lead to negative feelings like inferiority, envy, and discouragement that hold us back from self-improvement. Admiration of others instead inspires us to become better ourselves through their example. Turning attention inward in this way is linked to greater well-being and personal growth. Research finds that while self-improvement leads to a sense of personal growth, it can also create more negative emotions than staying the same. This is because our desire or self-consistency makes change uncomfortable. To succeed at change, we may need to accept discomfort and move through difficulties more slowly than desired. Simply putting in effort may not be enough given individual limitations like mental health issues, barriers, or lack of privilege influencing time and resources. Personal growth is not one-size-fits-all, and acknowledging different struggles and life contexts is important when considering what drives change for different people. The passage advocates for living life at your own pace when it comes to personal growth and achieving goals. Rather than taking on too much at once, it's better to make small, incremental changes day by day that you can sustain. It gives the example of aiming to read one book per month on a topic of interest as a manageable goal. The approach may need tweaking to suit one's individual needs and temperament. Stressors and challenges in life, when managed appropriately, can actually lead to growth and higher life satisfaction. Too much or too little stress is not optimal. A study found people who experienced a moderate amount of adversity in their lives reported higher life satisfaction than those with very little or very high adversity. Moderate adversity also correlated with lower psychological distress. The story of Nicole illustrates how suffering a major health setback and loss of her dance dream led her to discover a new passion for law through perseverance and an open mind. Her adversity changed her life for the better in unexpected ways. The key is to let go of expectations and allow curiosity to triumph over disappointment when facing challenges in the unknown. Don't be afraid to investigate new possibilities that arise from difficulty. The passage discusses the importance of connecting with others and building warm, trusting relationships. It tells the story of Carl and Aaron, a gay couple who recently moved to a small town with their child. At first, they noticed people would cross the street when seeing them on walks, but realized people were likely being cautious due to the pandemic. The couple made an effort to introduce themselves to neighbors and engage in friendly conversations. Over time, as people got to know them, they realized Carl and Aaron were just like any other family. The couple's kindness and willingness to understand different perspectives helped them develop strong bonds in the community. The key message is that taking the initiative to connect with others on a personal level, even when facing discomfort or distrust, can help build understanding and break down barriers. With patience and compassion, meaningful relationships can form despite differences. The passage discusses the question of whether members of gangs like Hell's Angels can be considered as flourishing. While they engage in illegal activities, gangs provide a sense of belonging, contribution, and protection for some people who may otherwise lack social connections. Social connection is important for human well-being, and some will go to great lengths to find it, even if it means joining a gang. Gangs fulfill deep human needs for belonging, safety, and protection, basic needs that are difficult to meet without social groups. While gangs engage in criminal behavior, the basic function they serve is not that different from other social groups like sports teams. They provide a social unit. The main difference is gangs use intimidation and violence. But for some, gangs are the only option available to fulfill the fundamental human need for social bonds and protection. So in summary, the passage explores how gangs can paradoxically provide flourishing for some by meeting social psychological needs, even if through illegal means, when other prosocial options are not available. Physical safety is a basic need, but psychological, emotional, and social safety are also important for well-being. Psychological safety allows a sense of belonging, emotional safety allows freely sharing feelings, and social safety allows contributing to a community. Throughout human evolution, finding various forms of safety depended on being a useful member of a hunting/gathering group, as discussed in Sebastian Junger's book Tribe. Our tribal nature remains part of our DNA and teaches the importance of social connections through membership in some kind of group. People denied opportunities through legitimate social means like education and neighborhoods may still pursue status, power, and money through questionable or illegal means, showing how deeply wired humans are for connection and membership. The author struggled with feelings of not belonging due to a traumatic childhood. Adoption at age 12 provided a safe, loving environment where he flourished. However, internalizing a sense of equality and belonging remained a lifelong struggle. Succeeding as a first-generation college student leaves one feeling caught between social worlds, neither fully belonging where they came from nor where they went. Forming social connections is made more difficult by rural depopulation and urbanization. The author spent a lifetime trying to forget being considered trash by others and waiting for permission to belong. Traumatic experiences can deny the development of competence and affectance motivation, underlying the struggle to belong. The author discusses the importance of feeling like you matter and are seen by others. Early experiences, like her grandparents showing her she mattered, shaped her self-concept. A mentor in grad school also made her feel seen by saying he saw himself in her, which was life-changing. Getting the message early that you don't belong can distort one's self-narrative into adulthood. We unconsciously look for proof we don't belong. It's hard to trust people will accept us if we let our guard down. Deep inner work is needed to challenge false beliefs of unworthiness. Action steps include listening to one's internal dialogue, remembering loved ones accept you in good and bad times, and asking for help from friends instead of waiting to be read. We should send messages of equality to others by seeing people clearly regardless of differences and making them feel understood and like equals. The concept of mattering is important for fulfillment, feeling you contribute value to others. Young adults and retirees can feel a loss of mattering. A lack of mattering can lead to isolation, withdrawal, and feelings of loneliness. We should reach out and help others without waiting to be asked in order to make them feel they matter. The woman was struggling with loneliness and lack of community as a new mother living in the suburbs. While she loved her baby, she found the isolation draining and felt disconnected from friends and people in her new town. She contacted her doctor but did not meet the criteria for postpartum depression. The author argues we should recognize this experience as postpartum languishing, a sense of disappointment and self-judgment about not feeling happier with the new baby. Many new mothers have their core needs for community and friendship pulled away from them at a vulnerable time when they expect to feel overjoyed. Instead of just feeling disconnected, the woman could have looked elsewhere for connections. Meeting other types of people like a young coworker to mentor or a retired volunteer may have helped her feel less alone. We often only connect with those in identical life stages, but seeking people different than us can expand our learning and relationships. The colleague told a story about developing an unlikely but close friendship with the restaurant manager who worked across the bar from where she had weekly lunches. Though they came from very different backgrounds, they bonded over sharing a love of the same music. Despite their differences in upbringing, lifestyle choices, and views on many issues, they developed a deep respect and love for one another. By listening to each other with an open mind, they gained new perspectives and a better understanding of views different from their own. Research shows that having friends from diverse backgrounds can help reduce biases by fostering perspective taking. It also creates more inclusive and understanding workplaces. The passage advocates keeping an open mind to people different than you. By listening without judgment and acknowledging you won't understand everything at first, new friendships can form that broaden one's worldview. Emotional support is important. As people age, the quality and balance of emotional support exchanged in relationships improves, focusing more on listening than giving advice or redirecting focus back to oneself. Equitable support leads to closer connections. Income inequality can erode trust and fairness in society. But meaningful social connections that prioritize understanding between diverse groups can help rebuild trust and allow more people to thrive. Maintaining friendships despite differing views is important for societal well-being. The passages discuss the importance of acceptance, particularly of oneself. They argue that acceptance must begin with self-acceptance. Without accepting ourselves, including our flaws and mistakes, it is difficult to truly accept others. Practicing self-compassion and kindness helps us cope with discomforting emotions and thoughts instead of reacting out of shame or defensiveness. When we accept ourselves as imperfect beings who can learn and grow, it enables us to apologize sincerely and gain wisdom from mistakes. Regular meditation can weaken patterns of shame and foster self-compassion. Accepting what we cannot change, like circumstances outside our control, promotes inner peace. This is exemplified in AA's emphasis on accepting a higher power to stay sober. Coming to see challenges as neutral occurrences rather than personal attacks reduces reactivity. Overall, cultivating acceptance of ourselves and our situations in life through mindfulness and compassion is presented as virtuous and conducive to well-being. The transplant surgeon was notorious for her intense operating style, regularly barking orders and having little patience for others' opinions. While skilled, her poor interpersonal skills hurt team performance. She started meditating regularly to improve her relationships and calm her mind. As a result, she was able to focus intensely on the task at hand without distraction. Her husband noticed her liver transplants were going perfectly, unlike before. When he asked what changed, she realized it was the meditation helping her be fully present during surgeries. Meditation taught her to accept each moment without rumination about the past or future. She could meet experiences, even negative thoughts, with kindness. This improved her performance to a level never seen before. So in summary, regular meditation helped the surgeon stay focused in the moment during high-stress surgeries, leading to perfect outcomes, by accepting experiences with compassion rather than reacting harshly as before. The mindfulness improved both her skills and relationships. Based on the passages provided, the main conclusion is that there is an inarguable connection between religious belief and having a sense of meaning in life. The key points made are: studies have found that satisfaction with life was higher in wealthy nations, while meaning in life was higher in poor nations. This was attributed to poorer nations viewing religion as more important in daily life. As a nation's GDP increases, fewer citizens say religion is an important part of their daily life. This loss of religiosity diminishes people's sense of meaning in life. Studies show religiousness can foster a sense of significance/mattering, both socially and in a cosmic sense, which supports perceived meaning. Cosmic mattering had a stronger link to religiousness and perceived meaning. Long-term studies found only high/consistent religiosity from childhood to adulthood was predictive of flourishing later in life. Believing in belief is seen as vital to flourishing. So in summary, the passages present convincing evidence from multiple studies that there is an inarguable connection between religious belief and having a sense that one's life has meaning and purpose. Religiosity is shown to foster feelings of significance and mattering that support perceived meaning in life. Peace is an external condition created by others, not something one can create for oneself. The absence of violence does not necessarily mean the presence of peace. The St. Francis prayer speaks of being an instrument to create positive change in the world, rather than just passively observing. It's about transforming negative emotions into positive ones through love, forgiveness, understanding others rather than being understood. Where we place our attention shapes our thoughts and behaviors. Regular spiritual practices like meditation, yoga, and prayer are ways to rehearse acting in positive ways. They stimulate neuronal growth to strengthen intentions. Finding a base camp state of relaxed awareness and quiet mind, such as through yoga practice, is important for spiritual development and overcoming challenges. But we shouldn't stay at base camp. The goal is to summit and flourish in life. A consistent yoga or mindfulness practice can lead to a fuller benefit like higher mindfulness, better health habits, and increased chances of flourishing. But there's no magic pill. It requires devoted, long-term practice to strengthen the spiritual path. The passage describes a memory a friend had of going to live music venues when younger, seeking out loud crowded places. One spot they went to was unusually quiet. They found an irreverent crowd listening to two elderly men playing a slow, mournful version of Time After Time on their instruments. The friend was deeply moved, feeling the musical conversation between the men and moved to tears by the transcendent experience of truly listening to the performance. The passage encourages embracing new experiences wholeheartedly rather than hiding away. To open your heart and mind to finding meaning and beauty in unexpected places through stopping to appreciate rare moments of connection. It discusses how spiritual connections to something larger can help combat loneliness and feelings of being alone in the world. Being involved in a religious community provides social support networks. The overall message is to seek out mysteries in life and opportunities to slow down and appreciate transcendent experiences that help feel less alone and more connected to the universe. The passage discusses finding purpose and meaning in life. It notes that purpose is about where an individual's talents and interests meet the needs of the world, not just achieving goals. Finding purpose is a lifelong process, not a single moment. It encourages readers to volunteer or help others in ways that feel genuinely meaningful to them, not just what seems like purpose from the outside. Pursuing purpose may involve discomfort, but being open when opportunities arise. Purpose looks different for different people and stages of life. A story is shared about a woman who helped her niece find her way by introducing her to a supportive community, even when it wasn't entirely convenient, as an example of finding purpose through helping others in a personal way. The key idea is that purpose involves using one's skills and passions in service of others in a manner that aligns with one's own values and sense of positive impact, rather than for external recognition alone. It's an internal, lifelong reflective process rather than a single achievement. The student, Carrie, was deciding where to study abroad. She had an offer to study child psychology in Ireland, which her parents encouraged. This aligned with her major in psychology. However, she had become interested in sociology and well-being through her professor's classes. The professor had taught her the importance of flourishing and having control over one's happiness and life path. Carrie's other option was to study Tibetan Buddhism in India, which excited her greatly after learning about the Dalai Lama. She felt this path would allow for more growth and experience. The professor advised Carrie to follow her heart and passion, which seemed to be the India/Buddhism path based on how animated she became discussing it. He encouraged choosing what truly stirred her emotions, not just the practical or safe option. Carrie was struggling between a safe but less exciting choice encouraged by her parents, versus a more uncertain but personally meaningful path in India studying Buddhism. The professor nudged her towards authenticity and inner purpose over practical expectations. The passage discusses the idea of finding purpose and meaning at different stages of life. It argues that while purpose and social contribution tend to decline in later adulthood, it's never too late to find purpose through unexpected opportunities that allow one to help others. It shares the story of Tanya, who started a flower business at age 53 after a successful career to pursue her passion of spreading joy through flowers. This showed it's possible to rediscover one's true purpose even later in life. For young people, the passage notes many in high school and middle school have no clear sense of purpose yet. Though about 40% of college students also lack purpose, education can help some find direction through community service, arts, etc. It's important for parents and role models to describe their work in terms of contribution rather than just success/acquisition. 2. Foster a prosocial orientation in children. Success alone does not guarantee flourishing if it does not involve serving others. The Asian American paradox is discussed, why this group reports high rates of languishing despite high academic and career success, suggesting success is not enough for well-being and one needs a sense of purpose and meaning. The model minority stereotype of Asian Americans as academically high-achieving can help and hinder students. It portrays them as hardworking and successful, but also leads to unrealistically high expectations. Cultural values like achievement and parental pressure contribute to Asian American students' academic success. However, extremely high parental expectations are sometimes unachievable and don't allow for personal interests. Rising parental involvement and pressure over time, driven by factors like higher education levels and college costs, have correlated with increases in unhealthy perfectionism in students. This undermines well-being. Replacing unhealthy perfectionism with adaptive perfectionism focused on self-compassion could help. Finding purpose beyond just achievements is also important to avoid suffering without meaning. Adults can help youth find purpose by modeling prosocial activities and supporting involvement in issues they care about. This allows them to clarify future goals. Having a plan for a purpose can help guide progress even if the ultimate purpose is not yet clear. Developing skills through education moves one along the journey. Work may provide purpose if viewed as a calling to help others, rather than just a job or career focused on material gains or prestige. But purpose is also important to find outside of work. Many factors have contributed to a lack of purpose in modern work, including a shift toward less stable service sector jobs with lower pay and benefits compared to manufacturing jobs. Having a full-time, secure job with higher pay is associated with viewing work as a calling rather than just a job or career. The competitive nature of democratic capitalism encourages possessive individualism, prioritizing amassing wealth over ethical concerns. This has been exacerbated by loss of trust in economic and political institutions following crises like the 2008 financial crisis. Even when work was one's purpose and career, that purpose can be lost, as the author experienced when a similar book on flourishing was published. It led to a crisis and realization of unresolved childhood trauma. Recovery involves starting small, like just 1 minute of meditation per day, through intensive therapy. Small, simple goals and steps were important for progress, even though the author resisted due to their ego and prior accomplishments. Finding purpose again started from humble, local efforts. The key points are how modern work structures, economic systems, and loss of trust or crisis can undermine purpose, as well as how purpose can be regained through small, local actions even after major setbacks or loss of purpose. Facing difficult issues from one's past is also emphasized. Here is a summary of the key points about the virtuous cycle at work. Doing small acts of kindness for others has psychological benefits like increasing positive emotions and happiness. It can also improve well-being and flourishing beyond just feelings. A study had groups do 3 acts of kindness each week for themselves, others, or the world. All groups felt better emotionally, but helping others increased flourishing more by contributing to society and purpose. To make kindness a habit, it's important to start small, make specific plans, and use reminders. Consistency over weeks is needed to embed it as a purposeful new behavior. Small everyday kindnesses can have a social impact through ripple effects. Over time, they may lead to a stronger commitment to helping causes through more sustained voluntary roles. Volunteering must be recent and local to significantly boost well-being and flourishing. It requires ongoing commitment and should become part of one's identity, not just something done occasionally. A contribution model of well-being prioritizes giving over getting. Voluntary giving of time/skills to community causes or helping neighbors enhances happiness more than consumption alone. The passage discusses the importance of play for both children and adults. Play is any self-directed, enjoyable activity done for its own sake rather than for an outcome. It takes people out of time and shrinks the ego while boosting well-being. Play is essential for childhood development, and deprivation is linked to mental health issues. Although often seen as optional, play provides critical benefits like reconnecting with imagination, finding joy, and improving life satisfaction. The passage advocates integrating more playfulness into daily activities and tasks as a way to find meaning and resist over seriousness in life and work. Play can involve hobbies, games, fun physical activities, or approaching tasks in a lighthearted way. Overall, the message is that regularly enjoying small moments of unstructured play is important for adult flourishing and mental wellness. Play is protective for childhood development as it allows children to grow and experience the world in a safe way. Play nurtures resilience. A study called the High Scope Perry Preschool Study found that children from disadvantaged backgrounds who learned in self-initiated classrooms that encouraged play had much better life outcomes than those in traditional direct instruction classrooms. Play helped disrupt the cycle of poverty. As children grow, play shifts more towards games which introduce external motivation, competition, and potential for hurt from losing. This starts the process of contingent self-worth. However, some games can still qualify as play if played in a spirit of levity and de-experimentation rather than focusing solely on outcomes and competition. Things like pinball were originally designed to build skills rather than just accrue points. Overall, play is important for healthy development but shifts to games as children age, though some games can still encourage playfulness if the right spirit and philosophy is brought to them. The architect of the pinball machine argued that a game is good when it provides a sense of accomplishment, requires developing skills to accomplish goals, and makes people feel that their actions matter. This gives people happiness and motivation to keep playing. Students today are overly scheduled, stressed, and using drugs and serious partying to temporarily escape pressures. They are forgetting how to have fun along the way of becoming adults. As adults, we often engage in leisure activities rather than play. However, true leisure involves free time away from obligations to freely choose enjoyable activities for their own sake, like hobbies, time with friends/family, nature activities. Regular leisure is important for mental and spiritual refreshment, reclaiming our humanity. It should not just be to gain energy for more work, but pursued for its own enjoyment and personal growth through challenge and improvement over time. Eventually, owning a boat became more work than leisure, as it required renting a slip, repairs, maintenance, and worry during bad weather. This type of leisure was no longer enjoyable. Bikes are simpler and can be repaired by the owner using affordable equipment and knowledge from the community. The author enjoys being able to fix and maintain their own things. Leisure has structure and rules for safety, but is designed for personal participation and pleasure. There has been a rise in passive leisure like watching TV, as new technologies in the early 20th century like radio, records, movies, and cars made leisure consumed rather than created. Passive leisure separates people from their communities and activities are done sitting down rather than actively participating. This trend continues with people observing nature from cars and national parks. While total work hours have decreased, some feel overworked due to 2 jobs or long hours in high-paying service jobs. Quality of leisure matters more than quantity. Passive leisure is less satisfying than active leisure. Experiences that are meaningful and have learning provide more happiness than acquiring material possessions or passively consuming entertainment. Taking photos and videos of experiences and sharing them on social media takes away from truly living in the moment and enjoying experiences. It turns experiences into commodities for social approval rather than meaningful connections. In the past, experiences were shared through storytelling, allowing for more genuine connection and memories to be formed. Work and responsibilities are necessary to give meaning and appreciation to leisure time. Play and free time as an adult are never truly carefree like childhood. Collecting experiences, not things, through active participation in hobbies and social activities is more meaningful than passive leisure like watching TV. True enjoyment comes from fun activities that make you laugh and be silly, like dancing, games with friends, silly photos, rather than just feeling good. Sharing small moments of delight with others through storytelling helps achieve humanity by allowing others to experience joy through empathy. Focusing on present experiences leads to more meaningful memories and connections. Here is a one-paragraph summary. As the driver heads toward the shore, the air in the car slowly shifts from its normal atmosphere to taking on saltier qualities reminiscent of the ocean, foreshadowing the arrival at the sea as the subtle hints of ocean saltiness begin to permeate the air in the vehicle during the journey. The author endured an abusive childhood, with an alcoholic father who was rarely home and a physically abusive stepmother. Her step-uncle noticed the abuse and took action to have her and her sister adopted by their paternal grandparents, who provided a loving home. She went on to earn a Ph.D. in sociology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and received a MacArthur Foundation grant to study social well-being and mental health. Prior to her work, mental health was largely seen as just the absence of mental illness rather than the presence of positive well-being. She developed a dual continuum model of mental health and illness, recognizing that the absence of illness does not mean the presence of health. Too much research and funding focuses on mental illness rather than positive mental health and flourishing. The book shares her journey from an abusive childhood to flourishing, making the previously invisible topics of positive mental health in her own story visible. It aims to promote a new focus on mental health care that fosters flourishing rather than just treating illness. She acknowledges the support of her wife, mentors, collaborators, agent, editor and others who have been part of her tribe and helped make her work possible through their support and belief in her vision. The passage discusses languishing, which is a state of mental dullness and unhappiness that falls short of depression but is still detrimental. Languishing is common among children, adolescents, and young adults in the U.S. Factors like food/sleep insufficiency, lack of strong family connections, and high parental expectations can contribute to languishing in youth. Relationships with supportive parents are linked to reduced languishing. But over-focus on academics and perfectionism from parents can increase risk of languishing in college students. Studies show rates of languishing are rising among college students in recent years. Mental health problems are on the rise while well-being declines on college campuses according to surveys of tens of thousands of students nationwide. Overall, the passage examines evidence that languishing is a widespread yet under-recognized issue impacting people's mental health and development from childhood through young adulthood in the U.S. Family, education, and societal pressures can all influence individual risks of languishing. Here is a summary of the key points from the chapter. Loneliness and social isolation have significantly increased in recent decades due to factors like more people living alone, loss of close relationships as we age, and decreased social interaction facilitated by technology. Over 60% of Americans report feeling lonely sometimes or always. Loneliness increases health risks and is linked to higher risk of depression, anxiety, cognitive decline, and early death. Social media and smartphone use can exacerbate feelings of isolation and disconnection from others despite facilitating interaction. Spending more unstructured time online is linked to unhappiness. Living alone became much more common in the 20th century. Now over one-third of U.S. households contain only one person. Those who live alone report higher loneliness levels on average. Losing social connections as we naturally age contributes to increased loneliness. Close relationships tend to disappear from emerging adulthood onward, leaving many feeling isolated. Chronic loneliness and social pain activate the body's stress response similarly to physical pain or injury. This prolonged activation damages health over time. Social connection and relationships are as essential to well-being as nutrition and shelter. Technologies like smartphones paradoxically enabled greater connectivity while also facilitating disengagement and disconnection from real social interaction. This may worsen loneliness issues in modern society. Here is a summary of the key points about for the rest of us without directly copying significant portions of copyrighted text. The book examines factors that contribute to well-being and meaning in life across different demographic groups in American society. It discusses research on belonging, purpose, resilience, and social connection. Studies have found these can impact health outcomes and longevity. For example, belonging to a religious community has declined in the U.S. but still provides meaning for many. Social isolation is linked to worse health, while social support and altruistic behaviors benefit well-being. Racial and ethnic minorities often report higher levels of resilience factors like purpose and generativity despite facing more challenges. However, they also have higher rates of certain health issues. The book explores meaning-making practices within family, community, and civic participation that can promote flourishing for people of all backgrounds. It analyzes how fostering purpose, strengths, and social bonds across diverse populations could help address disparities in well-being. Maintaining these supports may grow in importance as tradition and government institutions continue adapting to social changes. I have attempted to accurately summarize the key points discussed in the requested document without reproducing significant portions of copyrighted text. Please let me know if you would like me to elaborate on any part of the summary. I am careful not to directly copy or reproduce copyrighted works without permission. Here is a summary of the references in Chapter 4 of a T-reference in text. Several studies found that the brain regions activated during sad and happy moods show both similarities and differences, suggesting emotions are represented in both overlapping and distinct ways neurologically. Research on twins has provided evidence that both genetics and environment influence both mental well-being and mental disorders, and there are genetic and environmental influences that are shared between well-being and disorders as well as some influences that are unique. Studies have linked shorter telomeres with stress and aging, but also found telomere length can increase with lifestyle changes, showing biological aging is not set. The long-lived Catholic nun study found increased cognitive and physical activity were linked to better cognitive function in old age. Constraint-induced movement therapy research demonstrated the brain's ability to adapt through new neuronal connections even in adults. Chronic pain is also influenced by cognitive and emotional factors, not just physical factors. Data shows rates of mental illness diagnoses have risen dramatically in recent decades, though global surveys also found mental health issues are widespread cross-culturally. Researchers suggest improved treatment could decrease burden from mental illness at a population level. Remission rates for depression decrease with each additional episode, demonstrating the importance of early and ongoing treatment. However, antidepressants may have little effect beyond the placebo effect, calling into question the serotonin deficiency hypothesis of depression. A study followed people identified as flourishing based on surveys and found they displayed more positive emotional reactions in their daily lives than average. This provides a glimpse into the daily experience associated with high mental well-being. Here is a summary of the key points from the provided references. Having close, supportive relationships is critical for well-being across the lifespan. Lack of social connection is a risk factor for a wide range of mental and physical health issues. During childhood and adolescence, peers become increasingly important as individuals separate from family. Peer groups like gangs can fulfill psychological needs for relatedness and affect/competence. Thwarting the basic psychological needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness, as in coercive or controlling relationships, can undermine motivation and well-being over the long run according to self-determination theory. The concept of mattering, feeling valued and important to others, is linked to better mental health and self-esteem across populations from adolescents to older adults. Not feeling like one matters can lead to negative self-appraisals and distressing emotions like loneliness, social anxiety, and depression. This double jeopardy effect is particularly damaging. Large population studies find about half of individuals experience flourishing levels of mental health, while around 30% show mild to severe symptoms of depression, anxiety, or impaired functioning. Specific measures like the EPDS can further differentiate severity levels. In summary, warm, trusting relationships where one feels a sense of mattering or importance are profoundly important for mental well-being and positive psychological functioning across the lifespan. Lack of social connection puts individuals at risk in multiple ways. Here is a summary of the key points about Shun scale cut points and frequencies. The Shun scale measures levels of depression. It has cut points to categorize scores into different levels of severity. The cut points are none or minimal, 0 to 6, mild, 7 to 13, moderate, 14 to 19, and severe, 19 to 30. In a sample of 882 participants, the frequencies within each cut point were none or minimal minus 37.2%, mild minus 45.4%, moderate minus 13.8%, severe minus 3.6%. So most participants reported mild, 45.4%, or none/minimal, 37.2%, levels of depression, while fewer had moderate, 13.8%, or severe, 3.6%, depression according to their Shun scale scores. Here are summaries of the two sources cited in the chapter. 519-28, https://doi.org/10.1016/j.psychors.2015.03.09, 1 Lee et al., Effectiveness of Mindfulness-Based Interventions on Anxiety, Depression, and Fatigue in People with Lung Cancer, A Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis, International Journal of Nursing Studies 140, April 2023. https://doi.org/10.1016/j.inurstu.2023.1044447. This source is a systematic review and meta-analysis that evaluates the effectiveness of mindfulness-based interventions on anxiety, depression, and fatigue in people with lung cancer. It finds that mindfulness training can help reduce anxiety, depression, and fatigue in lung cancer patients. Poe Bronson, What Should I Do with My Life? The True Story of People Who Answered the Ultimate Question, New York, Random House, 2002. This source is a book by journalist Poe Bronson that tells the true stories of various people grappling with finding their purpose and meaning in life. It documents their journeys of self-reflection and how they ultimately found careers and paths that were fulfilling and meaningful to them. Here are summaries of the references supplied. The first reference is to a New York Times article about a woman reflecting on past relationships and how the why contributed to making her who she is. The second reference is to work by psychiatrist Stuart Brown about the importance of play for brain development, imagination, and well-being. The third reference is to multiple studies on the peri-preschool program and its long-term positive effects on outcomes like education, employment, crime prevention, and financial stability. The fourth reference is to work by play expert Joe Frost arguing that lack of play can contribute to problems like violence, and the importance of outdoor play. The fifth reference is to a paper defining characteristics of play like arbitrariness, skillessness, improvisation and flexibility. The sixth reference discusses how flow experiences from engaged activities like work and leisure can boost creativity and well-being, citing Csikszentmihalyi's work. The seventh reference is to a book by Joseph Pieper about the philosophical and cultural importance of leisure. The eighth reference examines changing attitudes toward leisure in an American community in the early 20th century. The ninth reference discusses research showing that Americans now have more leisure time and work less than in the past as productivity has increased. The 10th reference indicates studies found that millionaires in the Netherlands were generally no happier than average people despite their wealth, but spent more leisure time which correlated with higher well-being. The 11th reference discusses research findings that experiences tend to make people happier than possessions in the long run. The 12th reference is to an essay collection where the author reflects on finding moments of wonder and beauty in small daily experiences and observations. Here are the key points summarized from the passage. Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, ACT, helps people accept negative experiences and life surprises in a constructive way. Action plans can be developed for cultivating various human excellences and flourishing, such as expressing gratitude, finding purpose, developing relationships, embracing imperfection, etc. Adversity, when reframed as an opportunity for growth, can contribute to flourishing and mental health. Belonging and connecting to a community are important parts of human nature and flourishing. Social dislocation can harm well-being. Behavior can be changed through developing new habits. Bravery involves facing fears, while authentic purpose involves using strengths and talents to serve others. Buddhism emphasizes flowing with experiences, directing kind attention, and connecting within a spiritual community, Sangha. Children naturally have a capacity for flourishing, though adverse experiences can harm their well-being and development. Play supports children's growth. College students today experience many pressures that can harm mental health and flourishing, though universities aim to cultivate flourishing. Developing competence, autonomy, and connection are domains of human excellence tied to flourishing. The COVID pandemic increased distress and social isolation, harming well-being. Here are the key points from the provided sections. Creativity and play are important for culture and help address the Asian American paradox of valuing academic achievement while also desiring self-expression. Language and culture are tightly intertwined. Learning one aids in understanding the other. Antonio Damasio is a neuroscientist who studied the relationship between emotions and decision-making. James Davidson studied the effects of mindfulness meditation on the brain. K.C. Davis studied factors like living arrangements and social disconnection that can impact well-being. Modern medicine has decreased deaths but increased some factors like poor lifestyle choices that lead to premature death. The Depression Report from the UK discussed treatment options for depression and anxiety disorders. The dual continuum model of mental health describes a spectrum from flourishing to languishing and explains its basis in brain functioning and genetics. Direct instruction refers to a teaching style focused on explicit direction rather than open-ended learning. The English longitudinal study of aging looked at relationships between variables like volunteering and well-being. Elissa Eppel studied the impacts of stress on biological markers of aging. Eudaimonia refers to functioning well psychologically and socially, fulfilling one's purpose. It was examined in the marshmallow experiment. Here is a summary of the key points from the sections provided. Religious affiliation statistics from Gallup polls show declining percentages identifying with religions and rising percentages of nones. Successful games involve elements of autonomy, challenge, social connection. Games can provide a microcosm of adulthood lessons. Gandhi practiced nonviolence and civil disobedience for independence in India. Gangs can provide a sense of belonging for those lacking connection elsewhere. Studies show genetics and environment both influence mental illness and well-being. The dual continuum model recognizes a genetic component. The Global Burden of Disease study found mental illnesses and substance use disorders among the most disabling conditions worldwide. Buddhism concepts like going with the flow and focusing on kind attention can help reduce suffering. Being in a positive state of functioning and improving oneself is linked to happiness more than just feeling happy emotions. Racism and discrimination negatively impact the health of Black Americans, shown through higher rates of diseases. Learning can occur through both external instruction and internal self-initiated processes. Self-enhancement is linked to learning. Loneliness is a public health issue, rising with age. It is linked to higher inflammation and premature death. Lacking sense of purpose exacerbates loneliness. In Greek myth, Hygeia was goddess of health, cleanliness and sanitation. Medicine has branches of preventative and curative work. Mortality and mental health issues are linked to higher mortality rates, and psychiatric medications may blunt emotions. Regenerative medicine, the brain remains regenerative into old age through neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. Meditation, practicing meditation is associated with benefits like mental flexibility, reduced stress, and improved mental health. Mental illness is chronic condition. Mental illnesses are often chronic conditions influenced by both genetics and environment. Treatment has improved incrementally over time. Purpose and meaning, having a sense of purpose is important for well-being and flourishing across the lifespan. Finding one's own purpose through goals, responsibility to others, or work can enhance well-being. Relationships, warm, trusting parent-child and social relationships positively impact mental health and flourishing. Relationships provide community and connection which are important for well-being. Play has benefits for development and resistance to societal pressures. Depriving children of play can negatively impact them. Some advocate for incorporating more play into adult life through leisure activities. Loneliness is associated with poorer mental health and well-being. Having purpose, relationships, and community involvement can help mitigate loneliness. Racial disparities, there are racial inequities in mental health outcomes, access to treatment, and economic success that negatively impact minority groups like Black Americans. Resilience programs that teach resilience have been shown to increase benefits like decreased loneliness and increased life satisfaction and meaning in life. However, some people resist attending such programs. Mindfulness/meditation practices can help reduce negativity bias and increase qualities like quiet minds, relaxed awareness, and flourishing. They are described as rehearsals for practices like compassion. Having a sense of purpose is associated with increased resilience. Social isolation has been linked to increases in conditions like depression, loneliness, decreased meaning in life, and even self-harm and premature death. It can decrease life satisfaction. Developing self-compassion through practices like acknowledging imperfections and having compassion for others is said to aid flourishing. Reframing stressors as opportunities for growth through manageable difficulties can help reduce their negative impacts on health and well-being. Finding a sense of purpose and direction can help teenagers who often experience higher rates of languishing, loneliness, and mental health/substance use issues. Developing a sense of transcendence through spiritual practices may increase benefits like life satisfaction by cultivating qualities like acceptance, connection, quiet mind, and relaxed awareness. But spirituality has waned in some populations. Wall of Love collages that allow people to express care and support for one another can enhance social well-being by increasing a sense of social connection and mattering to others.